Hello, everyone. Andy Jacob here with the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. I have a fascinating show today. You know, so many people reach out to me at the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series, and they say, listen, we're founders, we're startups, we're in startup mode, and we need to learn about what it takes to really protect our intellectual property. You know, we really need to understand from the business perspective how to protect what we're building, how to protect our name, how to protect our brand, how to protect our software. And so many people have reached out to me. Well, I had decided to go through my Rolodex and really find one of the preeminent experts in the United States about intellectual property, business litigation, and the like. And his name is Jason Nardiello. And Jason, he's well known. He has the Jason Nardiello Law Firm, or the Nardiello Law Firm, of course. But when you hear what Jason is able to do for his clients and the type of expertise that he has, it's going to resonate for you as a business owner about how you need to start thinking about intellectual property. So, Jason, thank you so much for coming on the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Andy.
You have over 20 years of experience, or nearly 20 years of experience, representing some of the most admired companies and brands really in the world. And it's really interesting what you've been able to do. But we always like to start pulling the lens back to 30,000 feet and tell us about the law firm just to begin with.
Yeah, thanks. So Nardiello Law is a mostly intellectual property litigation and protection law firm. And we focus mainly on trademark and copyrights specifically. And then there's areas of unfair competition, basically when companies are not playing fair with each other in the marketplace. And so we help clients nationwide, and they're of all sizes. They could be startups like you were just discussing. They could be sole proprietors, mid-sized companies, and we even represent large companies. And in fact, in some art cases, we represent foreign governments. So we do quite a bit. And a lot of this comes from my background representing global companies from Japan and Europe, basically all over. And so what we do is we take all this experience and we bring it to startup companies in addition to other clients. But the startup companies can really get some value and leverage from what we know.
I love it, Jason. It really is remarkable. You know, let's think about a startup company just for a moment. And, you know, you work with so many startup companies. You're a go-to expert in the field. I mean, a lot of people know about you. A lot of people, you know, when someone reaches their board of advisors or goes to their people that are consulting them, or maybe they have mentors and they say, hey, who should I go to? Of course, a lot of people say, go see Nardiello, go see Jason Nardiello. He's an expert in this. When we think about startups, what are some of the things that startups really should think about in terms of, you know, protecting their intellectual property?
Well, what they really have to think of is what is the protection really going to do for them in reality? Sometimes people or startups, small companies, they think, well, yeah, we need to get this trademark registered or that copyright registered without really a thought as to why. So what we do is we listen to the client and figure out what their needs are. And then we sort of we look into the future and say, okay, where are the touch points for potential threats in litigation? Where can the problems arise? So basically, we see all the problems before they happen, and then we get the clients the right protection they need to prevent any problems in the future.
That's interesting, Jason. What's that onboarding look like? A founder calls you, a startup founder calls you. Maybe they're being incubated. Maybe they've got some money that, you know, has come in through venture capitalists or, you know, some other types of first round financing. And of course, the people that are investing say, you know, go see Jason, talk to Jason. Let's make sure we're protected. What does that initial conversation sound like with a startup founder that you have with them?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that does happen a lot. The first place we start is I listen to what the client has been doing, what the potential client has been doing, and listen to their story. Because also there's always a backstory, and sometimes the clients really know what they want. And then we can even add to that. There's a value add where we can listen to the story and then even give more value depending on where the client wants to go with their business. So, for example, in the case of a software company, they may be really interested in getting the correct trademarks and protecting them, and there might be problems with competitors. But then we really help them get involved in protecting their copyrights too in the software itself. And then even dealing with how to protect their intellectual property through trade secrets and trade secret protection, which varies from state to state, and then at the federal level too. So it's a combination of listening, understanding exactly what the client is looking for, and then maybe adding some more protection, and then just gliding them through there.
That's so interesting. I would imagine that there's a lot of wisdom in starting it off right. In other words, Jason, if you start this startup and you have a business and you have a company and you don't start it right by thinking ahead of the pack, for example, by speaking to someone like you, Jason, that you can really get yourself into a lot of problems if you're not taking it from the beginning the right way. Is that the way it works?
That's the way it works. And unfortunately, I've seen it often where things weren't started correctly. And in fact, I would say maybe 80% of the problems that I see are due just because of that, because things weren't started correctly in the beginning. Yeah, we can always fix these problems usually, but it's a lot more expensive to do it that way than to start it correctly in the beginning. So, for example, if the intellectual property wasn't really protected correctly from the start, there could be problems later on if you try to enforce that intellectual property. There could be all sorts of problems. Also, in terms of getting the agreements together, agreements with that you may have with your vendors, agreements with employees, agreements with people that you're working with on your ideas, such as non-disclosure agreements, that sort of thing. If you don't get all this together, there could be major problems. And especially in the software space, where there's issues about who owns the software that's being created. So yeah, I mean, it's really good to do it correctly and to have a consultation with an attorney before you start, moving on and investing a lot of money into some type of venture.
I love it. That makes all the sense in the world. For the entrepreneurs watching the show, rewind what Jason just said. It's so important to start off correctly and to speak to a strategist. And when I think about sort of commercial and intellectual property and strategy, Jason, well, for myself and of course a lot of people, your name comes up as a leader in the field, as a real strategist. I mean, where did this come from? Where did this passion for strategy and helping companies strategize for what they're doing today and the future in terms of protecting their backside come from?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. There's two parts to it. One is where I came from in terms of how I started as a lawyer. When I was really young, I started doing litigation, just business litigation. And while that was fun, there was still a little bit of the missing part of the helping aspect of it. And once I got into IP, I really found clients who really were grateful for the help I was giving them. And, you're building something with the clients, and there's a lot of gratification in doing that. And then on the other hand, after handling cases, being involved in lawsuits and resolving a lot of lawsuits for clients, there's definitely gratification there in helping clients through what can really be a very trying and stressful time. So I always tell the clients that, the reason why you hired me is to deal with the stress so you can sleep at night. And, I have a lot of fun with the strategy part. So everybody's happy.
I love it, Jason. Now, your geographic footprint is everywhere. How are you able to manage clients from throughout the country? Because, you're able to bring in people from different parts of the country who reach out to you and put them under the Nardiello umbrella of protection. How do you manage to bring all these people from various states throughout the country into your law firm?
Right. Well, I've been doing work in this area for, like you mentioned, I've been practicing for about 20 years. And then the IP area, as far as lawyers go, is sizable, but it's not as big as, some other areas of law. So when you've been in it for a while, people get to know you, and the name gets around. And the nice thing about this area of law is that I can help people in any state of the country for the most part, because a lot of these cases, well, most of the cases, if not all of them, are handled in federal court. And if you're an attorney in one state, most of the time you can get admitted into any other state, with some limited exceptions. But for example, we've had cases, and I've had cases all over the U.S., from California to New York to here in Texas. We have an office in New York too, where originally I'm from. We've been in Arizona, Colorado, Oregon, Florida. I've been all over. So it's really helpful to clients to know that, we can practice anywhere. And you don't necessarily have to get, another set of lawyers if you have a problem in one part of the country versus another.
I love it, Jason. That really is interesting. When I think about it, when somebody does an onboarding with you, Jason, and you see what they're doing, do they sometimes say to you, hey, Jason, do I need to be protected worldwide, or do I just need the United States? Or how do I protect myself if this thing really becomes what I expect it to become, like a worldwide phenomenon?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because the first problem is that, for the most part, intellectual property rights are what we say are national in scope. So generally, you do have to get protection in each jurisdiction that you're interested in. So if you're interested in the United States, of course, we would start by locking down rights here by registering them. But if you also are interested in Canada or Mexico or Spain or Japan or India, you usually have to go to attorneys in those countries. Now, the great thing is that, well, first of all, I sit down with clients and figure out where their scope of protection should be. Obviously, it costs money. The more places where you want to get protection in, the more places, the more money, obviously. But you don't just have to, throw all your money out there and try to lock down protection in every place in the world. It's not necessary, and it's really ill-advised. So it's better to, we work with the client to figure out what the best protection strategy is, based on two things. The first thing we do is we look at, well, where is most of the commerce going to be done? Will it be done in Europe? Will it be done in the US? Will it be done in Africa? Anywhere. So we look at that. And then we look at, well, what are those jurisdictions like in terms of counterfeiting? And what are those jurisdictions like? What are the risks in terms of competition or counterfeiting? So we take a look at all these things and put them together. And then we decide, okay, based on your budget, this is where we think you should get protection. And we start from there. And the nice thing is that, through all my experience, I've developed a really big worldwide network of attorneys and IP professionals all throughout the world. So we can basically help get you protection in any place in the world.
I love it, Jason. That's so interesting. Now, for a Fortune 100 company, a Fortune 1000 company, they may have different needs than a startup. And for Fortune 100 and 1,000 companies, they continually come up with things that need to be protected. I mean, almost every day they're coming up with something new or something that they feel is an intellectual property that they want to have protected. How does it work with Fortune 100, 1,000 companies, bigger companies? Do they just have a group of attorneys that work on this all day long? How do they protect themselves as they become a multi-billion-dollar company?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the first thing is the team. The biggest companies usually have either or in addition to a large group of attorneys in-house and outside, external attorneys, outside counsel. So, of course, startups aren't going to have that, and that's not advised either. So it's good to get to basically partner with an attorney that can see you through the whole lifespan, so that they can have that history with you. So you want that. And the other thing that you want, other than that initial relationship, is that you do need to have some type of strategy in terms of what is your protection going to be. And then also, the large companies look at it too, because the name of the game is really competition. You're not out there, you can't make money without competing in this world. So you're really looking at, okay, what are the competitors and what are they doing? And how can we get out there and compete, fairly without running into, litigation problems? And basically, what do we need to do to comply with the law? And then, so in this way, we really help, the clients get the most out of their business while avoiding, litigation. Or if you are in litigation, then getting through that litigation quickly and, not spending a lot of money, hopefully.
Wow. I love it. And Jason, of course, you're a go-to expert. So many startup companies come to you. They're knocking on your door. They want this protection. They want your breadth of experience over the past 17 to 20 years with all the knowledge that you bring to the table as well. Is there one thing that these startup founders come to you with that never ceases to amaze you? In other words, there's something that they're either not doing or that they are doing that they're all doing or not doing that you just can't believe that they're all doing or not doing?
That's a good question. I think that one of the big things in terms of just getting a whole brand and identity established is that they really put the cart before the horse, and they think that, well, we have to get a great trademark, and the trademark has to be it because that's what's going to help us make money. You don't really have to put, believe it or not, you don't have to put that much thought into, what does the trademark look like or what does it sound like? There's certain limitations to that. Not all trademarks are as easily protectable as others, just based on what they sound like or what they look like. But really, it's the value of the business and the quality of either the services or the goods that really make the company. And the trademark in trademark law is really just a shortcut to help people identify that company, its products, or its services. So, what I would say to clients is don't spend so much time and maybe even money, trying to get the best looking trademark or best looking logo and that sort of thing. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And in fact, some of the most well-known trademarks in the world are super, super simple and, really didn't take that much time to make.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And of course, this is the kind of advice for the entrepreneurs watching the show that you get from Jason and his law firm, Nardiello Law. Good, straightforward advice, good strategy, a good conversation with Jason and his team are going to get you from point A to B, give you the protections you need, but certainly not make you spend more money than you need to get this thing set up at the beginning. And the whole idea for a good attorney like Jason is to grow with you. Start up with Jason, and as you grow to hopefully the unicorn company that you're going to become, the billion-dollar company, Jason and his team are there along the way. And that's really a beautiful way to establish a relationship with someone that you trust. And in the law firm, that's very, very important. So for the younger entrepreneurs watching the show, Jason, thank you so much for that. Now, Jason, I want to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship. You know, we have younger entrepreneurs that are watching the show, and they may be in startup mode right now. Maybe they're along their path, and maybe they're hitting a roadblock. Maybe they're hitting a wall. Maybe they're hitting a big wall that they don't know if they can get through or around or over the top of. So maybe you could give some advice based on this 17 to 20 years of working with startup founders about how someone who's having a tough time in their business, maybe they freeze in the frame, they're having a tough time getting through that roadblock. Maybe you could give them some advice on what it takes to get through the roadblocks and the potholes in the road.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with this, believe it or not, is that there's too much information out there for any aspect of your business. And in fact, the internet can actually be your enemy a little bit and not always your friend, because there's way too much information on it. And it's really hard to pick out, what is the right information? What is the true information? What's the false information? Because, just because everyone is going a certain way or has a certain belief, or it seems like the majority of the people have a belief about what should be done, it doesn't necessarily mean that's the right way to go. So what I would suggest, whether, you're looking for, some type of legal protection or help with a legal problem, or, if you've got, financial concerns, or if there's an accounting issue, or if you've got employment issues, that sort of thing, the best thing is to connect with people, connect with an expert in the field, connect with either an attorney if it's law, or an accountant if it's accounting, or a tax person if it's tax, because they'll help guide you. And again, the internet's great, obviously, but if you're just starting at that really high level and you're trying to figure out what direction to go in, usually someone with experience in the area can help you steer it and steer you in the right direction a lot faster than just doing a Google search.
That's great advice, Jason. I call that a mini Harvard MBA. When you go to Harvard, you go to the classes, the professor's up there, you do case studies. Half the class answers one way, half the class answers another way. There's no real answers. It's sort of esoteric to a certain degree, but that's happening in a classroom. The advice that you just gave is really from having your feet on the ground and listening to the entrepreneurs that come to you. And it's really such a better way and a much more valuable way to gain insight, to hear it from someone that's actually been through it and someone that's experienced this with entrepreneurs in your practice. Now, I want to talk about litigation just a little bit because, it's sort of the 800-pound gorilla in the room. We talk about intellectual property, and we've done a great job talking about that. You're one of the leaders. We know that. But when it comes to litigation as well, it happens sometimes. So let's talk about that aspect of your law firm and how litigation does happen sometimes and what your expertise is in litigation as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, unfortunately, litigation, does come up, and, whether it's fortunate or not, it's unfortunate for the clients, but they usually find themselves in a situation that's challenging. Sometimes they come to us because they need to enforce their rights. And that could turn out well for the client, depending on how it's resolved. But the real, issue with litigation is that, how do you attack that? How do you approach the litigation, while still, keeping money, basically, because federal litigation, in where a lot of IP cases are done in federal court, can get really, really expensive. So you have to really, figure out, well, what will the strategy be here? Do we just want to get a settlement out of this, or do we want to be able, to stop the other side, the competitor, completely in running away with our brand or running away with our copyrights? Because, one of those is a lot more expensive than the other. And, each situation is so much different. And again, this is that situation where it really helps to speak with someone first. And, a lot of attorneys will, give you their feelings about a case. And, it could even help to, if you call them, to set up a conference and, just discuss the overall high level plan of what you might want to do.
So interesting, Jason. Everybody knows from watching the show, I get pretty excited and I can't help myself. I get very excited about talking about entrepreneurship and sometimes I even lose my place because my mind is moving faster than my mouth. And I get to talk to so many interesting people and so many worldwide leaders in their space. But one thing that comes across, Jason, with you that I love, especially, as an attorney and someone that I would hire as an attorney, is your calm demeanor. That's a great thing to have, especially as a startup founder, to have someone that remains calm. They have these shirts, remain calm. I'm your attorney. It's great to have. It's great to have someone who can be a sounding board for you and sort of relate to in a very calm way, because entrepreneurs, we get crazy sometimes. We get excited and sometimes we freak out and sometimes we freeze in the frame and sometimes we don't know what to do. And sometimes we're loud and sometimes we're boisterous. But from an attorney standpoint, I have to tell you, talking to you is very calming to me. Talking to you makes me feel like you're going to get it done. Talking to me as my attorney, if you were, I would say to myself, wow, Jason has it very under control. I'm paying him to keep it very under control for me. I can go to bed feeling great that he's handling everything for me. It's very calming. I get all of his background and experience in a nice, neat bow, plus all of his advice as well, protecting me and my company and my family. And I love that so much, Jason. It's remarkable. So as my final question, where did you come up with this sort of calm demeanor? Is this something you've always had, or did you have to learn it through the years that this is maybe a brand strategy to stay calm for your clients?
Well, part of it is through experience. I probably wasn't calm for the first, decade of my practice because every day is something new and, you feel like you never really know what you're doing. So, in that sense, even as an entrepreneur, it might seem crazy in the beginning. And every day is, basically felt as if, you don't really know what you're doing. But, you don't have to worry about that. It comes with time. And, the important thing to know is too, that you're always going to feel uncomfortable. And so you have to get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. And so that's really how I view it. And you just have to embrace, what's in front of you. It's really the best thing I can say.
I love it, Jason. Embrace what's in front of you. Your clients embrace not only your powerhouse approach and your background and experience, but also your calmness to bring sort of that serenity to the situation. It's really awesome, Jason. So listen, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on the show. What you're doing at the Nardiello Law Firm is awesome. Thank you for giving us some wonderful gems, not only about entrepreneurship, but for the startup founders, how to protect themselves, what they need to focus on, and of course, sort of the onboarding aspect of what it looks like to start the protection process of one's intellectual property rights. It's been remarkable, Jason. Thank you so much for coming on the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time.